After that. The recording is in progress. Welcome to our Unified Outdoor Bocce District Rep meeting for spring of 23. Who I am at this point, I'd be hopefully not surprised that you would know who I am and who Katie is. Katie Turner is our sport chair as well. And we are going to go through just some of the basics tonight and then a few little updates to how we operate rosters more than anything when it comes to outdoor bocce, but you'll see a lot of things that are similar to years past. Again, these are kind of some of the things we'll go over: season timeline, coaches trainings, you guys hold them pretty soon after this, if not already, checklist stuff, so on and so forth. So some admin stuff up front. Here's the slide for the most part you guys kind of care about. It is the timeline of things. So on the 21st of March, it says that applications of participation forms are due. Yeah. We have shifted to a format where the technicality for bocce, those forms for student athletes are for those going to the tournament. But I have told district reps and folks that the smart play is to collect them around March 21st anyway for all your schools, instead of playing that game where you get to the end of the season, know who's going to states, and then chase it all down at the end of the season. It's a nightmare week and a half if you don't do that. I will say we ran into some of that for indoor bocce this year, and it was a pretty big scramble to grab paperwork. So on the 21st, again, not technically due, but we highly recommend you are grabbing paperwork from your kids around that time. So when you know who's going to states, you have it and you're ready to go. Again, team assessments, we say kind of make it through March, get your feet under you, get to know your teams, get to know your student athletes, do your assessments towards the end of March. If you do them a little bit earlier than the 28th, we're not going to hunt you down and penalize you in any way. If you do them a little bit later than the 28th, we're also not going to penalize you in any way. The main thing is we recommend it around that time because April 8th is kind of when we recommend really starting to pull together your postseason rosters, so you know who's going to play in what teams. And if you need help setting up your district tournament, with which Katie Turner is always willing to do, she needs those competition rosters with the assessment scores to really help you division anything, because we use those scores to division. Talking about coaches training, we're in a very mixed, environment right now. Some districts are having people come into a single location to do coaches training. Some are, having them do it online. However works for you is fine with us and works for your district. If you have the capabilities of tying in a bocce type of training in that, one, we're more than willing to come and help you do that. And two, it really helps to get coaches on courts to start the year. It sets a pretty good tone. I know with everybody's schedule, I know with, coming out of winter, I know spring breaks are coming up. I know that's easier said than done. So we understand if you format it differently. The main thing is we want you to get your coaches the information that they need to get, productively through the season, have the rules that they need to be training their athletes the correct way, and then any other things that your district may require, dates that you require, so on and so forth. If you guys have your dates for your coaches trainings, I think Anne Arundel already had theirs. If you can send that to me, that would be great. If you have your dates for your district tournaments, if you can get those to me ASAP, in the follow-up email, I will send a reminder to send those to me. We want to get your district tournament on our SOMD calendar too, so we can come out and support you. I know our CEO, Jim, likes to pop out to some from time to time, but we want to be out there to support you and get you guys where you need to go. It also lets me know when I need to have awards prepped for you guys. So it also lets Katie know if she needs to help you guys division tournaments when yours are, and gives her that, week or 2 week window to figure those things out. If you are looking for any resources for coaches training, this Special Olympics Pennsylvania video is on how to officiate bocce, but it covers a lot of the rules very, very well. I believe this might actually be quote unquote outdated just because of they recorded a new one recently, just higher quality and stuff. There hasn't been any rule changes that really warranted a new recording, but they updated it. Good friends of mine in Pennsylvania that recorded it. So it's a really good resource if you want to share and show it to coaches. Just know, again, it's about officiating bocce. And additionally, the SOI coaches guide, all these coaches guides are like 10,000 miles long, but they're clickable PDFs, so you can navigate as you want. Has everything you can think of in there for bocce and bocce training. It goes over the rules again, which you probably don't need that aspect, but has a lot of good tidbits on if you have a coach that's like, I have a student athlete that keeps doing this and I don't know how to fix it. A lot of the times there's a lot of good info in that SOI coaches guide, and there's little snippets of videos and all sorts of stuff in there. So take a peek at that when we send the slideshow. This will be a clickable link that you can go to there. District rep checklist. We have this in all of our preseason webinars. Again, most of you have a good concept of what the game plan is and how to attack your season essentially each year. But make sure you're talking to your athletic directors and district supervisors, whoever it may be. Reach out to school by school athletic directors, however you want to work it. Find out what schools are participating. I know in the past couple of years, schools have been building back into participating in unified sports. So, and some have also said, hey, with our ability to have coaches and teachers and their schedules and so on and so forth, we're only doing X or Y or Z sport. So again, just communicate with your athletic directors and they will do their best to get you info. If for some reason you are having problems with communicating with schools, you're reaching out, you're not hearing anything back, let me know and I can assist as well. If you have a contact list for your coaches, please send that to us. What that allows us to do is compile a coaches list. So then once we know who's going to state, we have emails ready to go and we can start firing off emails to coaches ASAP. That also then allows us to communicate with coaches if, including you guys, if anything comes up during the season. Again, make sure you have your coaches training scheduled and communicate your district tournament date, because I know that is important to a lot of your coaches as well. Recruitment, again, if you guys are in need of help of recruiting or recruiting materials, let me know. We are getting some of those posters that we use for other sports. It's just been a little backlogged with the printing company that we use. So I'm trying to get them and ship them to you ASAP. But we are open to other ideas for coaches recruitment, athlete recruitment, whatever it may be. I think the way we recruit for almost anything SOMD does, even this weekend at WISP for Winter Games. When it comes to volunteers and coaches and athletes, I think coming out of COVID-19, people have different priorities, so we may have to recruit differently. And we want to know if you need help or resources to recruit differently. Make sure your district has your LSS manager set up. That's the person that helps you with GMS. Some district representatives do the GMS themselves. Some want an LSS manager, that's available. But that's just to take some load off of your shoulders when it comes to data entry and paperwork and such. Again, this is just a note about recruitment. Think about any resources that you may want for closing out this year, or hey, Zach, think about this for startup of 23-24. And we're open to everything. Again, we want to, as student athletes, change and their interests change and your interests change and coaches' interests change. If there's different things we need to do to get them into unified sports, we're more than happy to have a conversation around how we get them into unified sports. So this is the paperwork section. We're not going to go super word by word in depth on the paperwork and stuff. This is just saying, like, please make sure you're getting paperwork and turning it in. I will say, to close out the winter season for some of the state tournaments, we did some paperwork chasing. As I said, when it comes to bocce, as a sport that only has an allotted number of teams that go to states, the technicality is that we only need the athlete paperwork and stuff for teams going to states. Don't wait that long. Again, make sure you just get as much as you can and get it into us as soon as you can. We can just check your boxes off that, hey, we got X, Y, and Z from you way sooner, and then you don't have to worry about it. The other one is making sure your coaches are getting their paperwork done as well for us. We do know that it's a little bit of a a repeat of some paperwork that they do as a teacher or part of athletics in the first place. But again, each organization has similar paperwork, and we just need to make sure we're getting this stuff done. Additionally, I think people did a really good job in the winter of putting on their roster any additional folks that are working with the team that are besides coaches, paraprofessionals, student managers, so on and so forth. Make sure they make it onto your roster, because it's really important to have them on your roster, registered in GMS, and that's how we get them credentialed for the state tournament, and they can support your student athletes as needed. You guys have seen this application for participation. I will send this file as an editable PDF along with the follow-up email. All your student athletes have to do this. CDW, which is our communicable disease waiver, it's our COVID form. All student athletes have to do this. The one note with this as compared to the application of participation, this is a one and done. If you have students that have done it before and they're in our system, it'll pop up in there. If they want to do it season to season and you just want to check that box off to make sure they have it and just have them do it every year like the application of participation, that's fine too. It's just one more form to sign. But if that's the easiest way for you to check your boxes that everyone has it, you can have them do one every year. Additionally, before we get into the roster, I do want to remind folks, if you have student athletes that participated in winter season and or fall season and already did their student paperwork, they don't need to do it again. It's good. You may want to put a note on your personal roster that you turn in saying, hey, this kid played tennis, this kid played, strength and conditioning. And then you don't have to do the paperwork chase down to that too. So just a reminder on that as well. Team roster, the team roster changed a little bit this year. And the only thing that changed as part of it was we added a column essentially for you to circle what role your student athlete is. Are they an athlete with an intellectual disability? Are they a unified partner without an intellectual disability? Are they a unified partner with an IEP 504 that has a physical disability, that has any sort of IEP 504 status under the sun? So that's the only thing. And that's just to help clarify who's who and how the composition of your rosters shapes out to be, so you can hit the minimum roster requirements for competition. Again, this to go step by step. This is where it comes down to for your coaches. Actually, let me go back one slide. Talking about Class A clearance, that's our coaches clearance. Coaches, student managers, paraprofessionals. If you have an athletic director that's super involved, if you have somebody in your district that is overseeing unified sports specifically that's very involved, we want to make sure they're Class A cleared. So essentially the best way to think about it is anyone that is working directly with your student athletes, that you would have an expectation to work directly with your student athletes from the first day of practice all the way through state games, that you would want on the competition floor and or field and have access to competition, you want them to be Class A cleared. If it's a paraprofessional that just needs to be around the team, but doesn't need to be on top of a single student athlete, and they're going to sit in the stands the whole time, probably don't need to have them Class A cleared. But if something happens, you want to have them to have access to your students at all times. Essentially, there are 3 steps to be Class A cleared. There is a SOMD background check and volunteer application. It's a 1-pager. You fill it out, submit it, done. There's a protective behaviors training, which is how to work with our athletes, how to support our athletes. We've condensed that down, thanks to Jeff Abel, down to a 15-minute video training. And there's like a 10-question quiz after that. That used to be like an hour and 15-minute training. Jeff has done an excellent job getting the core points into a more concise training for us. And then the last thing for coaches is the CDW, that COVID form. They need to have that as well. So 3 points that any of your coaches, paraprofessionals, team managers, so on and so forth. I will say, when it comes to team managers who are younger than 18, if there are students in the school, they don't do the background check. There's a student minor reference form, which I will also send you, which is what we have them do. They're not 18. We can't run a background check on them. So we just have them do a reference form. These next slides we're not going to talk through, but it takes you step by step. My recommendation is to do things through Volunteer Hub. It's a website where you create a login and a registration. and then it takes you through all 3 of those trainings. And it'll prompt you to do the protective behaviors. You'll go through the video, you'll do the quiz, it'll register on there, and then you just keep rolling through. It'll just push you right through. Essentially, if you commit roughly, I don't know, 45 minutes to one training and signing a few papers one night on Volunteer Hub, you're done. I will also send the official link for this in the follow-up email. But this just takes you step by step. In case any of your coaches are confused, you are more than welcome to chop this out of the webinar and send it as well. Again, we will have it in our system. If you have coaches that are doing all this paperwork and they're going through Volunteer Hub, if you want to send me a list to verify and check for you, I'm more than happy to do that early season, mid-season, to hold off from the last minute paperwork hunt at the end of the season. If you want to do that earlier mid-season, I'm more than happy to verify coaches' status for things as well. We don't run that on like a weekly basis or anything, but I can find them all for you in roughly an hour, hour and a half, depending on how many coaches you have. This is information about LSS managers, just some tidbits about making sure you're providing a list of your coaches to the LSS manager, that they have access to any of your Google folders that you may use. Again, if you have an LSS manager, they're putting in information into GMS as their primary job, but at the same time, they can help you. They should be your right-hand person to help you with unified sports. And it's just some LSS manager stuff. When it comes to information, my goal is to send you everything you need in a follow-up email after this to really get the season started. If for some reason you are looking for a form that I sent you, can't find that email, we're looking for the state tournament date, if you want to pull the coach resource guide again and print it, if you want to watch this webinar again because you're just bored one night and you really miss listening to me talk for 45 minutes to an hour, whatever you may want, we have an online page on our website that you can go to get everything. We used to play the Google folder game, and it just gets kind of messy and it's hard to find stuff, too many hands in the pot. And so what it comes down to is this website will be your one-stop shop. This will be a clickable link. You'll also get a link in the follow-up email as well. Speaking of the coaches guide will come out with the email tomorrow as well. It's officially done, and we want to get that to you. All sorts of other tools that you can access. If you click on the link, it'll take you to various guides and stuff like that. These are just some things that we share with you, and we share with coaches in our community program for training resources and just extra resources to have, quite honestly. COMAR regulations. I'm not going to go detail through COMAR regulations. Talk to your athletic directors if you have COMAR questions about being in compliance with COMAR and offering opportunities, so on and so forth. The one thing that I have learned in my time doing unified sports now is everyone does COMAR. Every district may do COMAR a wee bit different based on district policies and stuff like that, but everyone adheres to it. So talk to your district athletic director if there's one overarching over your whole district, or go to individual athletic directors for a school. They can help you as well. We do have officially 12 districts now. We did have Baltimore County join us last year, and they joined us at the state tournament for indoor bocce this year, which was great. We do have St. Mary's coming back to join us for outdoor bocce this year for the first time in a while. So hopefully you get to see some of those faces at the state tournament or at districts or wherever. So we continue to grow as unified sports across Maryland. And we appreciate what you guys do to support that, support your athletes, all the great pictures and stuff that you post online, and all that kind of stuff, because it really draws more interest to get more kids engaged in unified sports and building the next unified generation. Rules and updates. There's a few things in here that we want to go over. The main thing is kind of like roster stuff. What we're going to talk about that. Main roster thing, again, they have to be a minimum of 4 and a maximum of 8, but you can have those 2 alternates that are at the bottom of your roster as well. We want on a court as a lineup frame to frame for bocce, we want 2 players with a disability and 2 players without. Or if you can't hit that for some reason, 3 players with a disability, 1 without. We have some flexibility. We're really shooting for that 50-50 lineup. Again, unified sports, we want equal opportunities and unified opportunities. So we are changing some wording designations on that competition roster. We found out through indoor bocce that there was some confusion around substitutions and what people were called on the competition roster. And it really was thanks to fresh eyes and good new questions from Baltimore County. It was nice having an external perspective of new folks that just had questions, which was great. So essentially, I'll show you the roster that's next, but the top 4 to 8 players, we're going to call those your active players from now on. And the bottom 2 players, which are your 9th and 10th players, if you have a full roster of 8 plus 9 and 10, are going to be called alternates. So again, this is the new sheet. We've changed it a little bit. It's the same looking competition sheet. We've added this big green heading for active players, which is your top 8 players here. And then there's the yellow section down here, which is called alternates. Before, we kind of just didn't have designations for those sections of the rosters. This was your competition roster. And then we started talking about substitutions, and people were getting confused about substitutions in the top 8 during a game and the bottom 2 in between games and so on and so forth. So this is what the new quote unquote postseason roster is going to look like. We're just clarifying who's what in what section. Do remember that when you are putting this roster together, in theory, with the Excel spreadsheet, the formula should work that when you type in your assessment scores, it should do the math, it should add everything up, and it should add everything up for all 10 people on the roster to get your team total. So just a reminder that, keep an eye on the spreadsheet. You guys use Excel all the time, I'm sure. Formulas can break occasionally, but make sure it's adding up all 10 participants on your roster. So talking about some substitution confusion, anyone that's in your active player section, the top 4 through 8, you could substitute any of them between frames during a match. So if you just played one frame and it was 3-2 and you had 4 student athletes on the court, you can make a substitution before that next frame starts of, I want these 2 unified partners on, these 2 athletes on, that's our lineup for this next frame. When it comes to those alternates at the bottom of the roster, you can only substitute them in between full matches. They can't be substituted into during a game. There's been some confusion around that. I think there has been in the past some half in, half out on that. Some schools have thought you can substitute during the game out of your alternates. Some have thought that you can't in between. We're just drawing that line just so everybody's on the same playing field and understands how we can do substitutions. The last 2 alternates on your roster, you can substitute in and out of your lineup of 8 in between full matches, not during matches. Before I go on, questions on those roster changes. I'll go back to this so you have a visual. You can unmute, you can throw a question in the chat, whatever it may be. Any questions?
Zach, I have a question. So we have 8 on active player.
Yep.
And you're saying that they can say these 2 are athletes, these 2 are partners, and they're going to throw this frame.
Yep.
Can you then say out of your 8 that 4 people could throw every frame, or do all 8 have to roll in the game?
We ran into this at the state tournament too. We ran into it in more of a context of who delivers the Polina. Currently, the wording in the rules when it comes to the Polina for sure is that you may have the same person deliver. We strongly advise that you rotate through. Additionally, when it comes to your group of 8, when it comes to rolling bocce balls to score points, the wording is the same that you may have 4 deliver the same, but we strongly advise. Again, it's more of a whole school engagement of getting your students involved and everybody during the match. It's like having a soccer team and leaving 6 people on the bench the whole time, because that's what makes sense for that match. So that's your call. We won't tell you what to do with your substitutions during a match. Other than that, you can only do it with the 8 in your active roster spot. But we highly encourage that you alternate through your 8 during a match to get everyone some playing time.
What would be the minimum that would have to throw? Because you know how you say 4 is the minimum players, but could an athlete and a partner, just 2, throw the whole frame?
So we have the only minimum that we set is that you need to have either 2 unified partners and 2 athletes throwing during a frame, or 3 athletes and 1 unified partner. We don't specify which ones or how you rotate them or how you do that. We do not have a minimum set, because that also then opens up a potential massive officials thing that we have to have officials policing that, so on and so forth. We just trust that you and your coaches do the right thing to get everybody a good experience and make your team as competitive yet friendly, competitively friendly during competition and play with other teams. That was a
Thank
good
you.
question, though. Very good question. Any other questions that anybody has when it comes to the roster? Okay. We will keep working through. Another thing that we wanted to bring up and emphasize is during weekly match play, there's some basic guidelines. It is in the coach's guide. And I will say the coach's guide for a little bit was a little ambiguous on how much and how long match play should be when it comes to weekly play between teams. The minimum play time that we want to see for your student athletes is either 20 minutes for a match or 16 points. We play 30 minutes or 16 points at states. So if you're not playing at least 20 minutes, by the time they get to states, that's going to be a long game for them to have to play in, and that could be really tough for your student athletes. We understand that there's limited time frames in after school participation windows for a ton of things. But again, we want them to have a quality training experience and competition experience at your local level, at your district level, before they come to states. So again, 20 minutes or 16 points is the minimum play time for week-to-week play. A reminder, and I'll have a diagram up after, athletes using wheelchairs or in wheelchairs or using ramps can roll from what is designated as the short court line. I've realized over the past season or two that not everybody takes advantage of that. And I also fully appreciate and recognize that if your students want to all throw from the traditional foul line, regardless of ramp or wheelchair or whatever, that you do that as well. That is totally an option, but just a reminder that athletes in wheelchairs or using ramps can roll from the short court line. Bocce balls also must be delivered below the waist. Not something that I usually need to remind folks of, but it has come up recently, and I did want to remind folks. So when I'm talking short court line, this is what you will see in the coach's guide. Your blue line is your center court line for wherever you start the frame. Your red lines on the end with cones are your traditional foul lines. This dotted line, which is 10 feet from both the foul line and the center court line, is the short court line of which your athletes in wheelchairs and or using ramps may use. Again, we've had some confusion there, and we don't want people going into districts and or states and then being confused and seeing that and being like, whoa, what's going on? Marianne, do you have a question?
Yes, sir. So the short court line, the ramp needs to be behind that?
Correct. So just like your toes would come up to the edge of the foul line for traditional rolls, the ramp needs to be behind that line as your toes would come right up to the edge. So put the ramp right on the edge of that as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. So again, any questions with that, let me know. But I wanted to remind folks that that is available. Essentially, this just talks about, creating a strong training regimen for your student athletes. We want to get them used to the game. We want to get them, reps. We want to get them experience playing the game. Again, it also talks about allocations. We don't have unlimited spots. We have 40 team spots for the state tournament, and spots get allocated to districts based on how many training teams you have. Every district gets one. I will tell you that every district always gets one state tournament spot. With that said, it depends on how many teams you have training from what the number looks like from there. I have floated in the past to people that it's a rough guesstimate of every 5 or 6 teams you have training, you get one one state tournament spot. With that said, if you have a miraculous 80 bocce teams training, we probably won't be able to get to one team per every 5 or 6 spots, because if you can do the math, you're almost at 40 teams alone. So just a heads up that every district will get one, but you'll get it more based off of your training numbers. Again, this is just talking about ensuring strong competition and stuff, that only student athletes listed on competition rosters when they're submitted to go to states will be part of the state's official team. I know in the past we've run into a situation where a school may have 4 bocce teams because there's so many kids that come out, and as an example, let's say Crofton team 3 goes to states, but Crofton teams 1, 2, and 4 are interested in coming. We have opportunities potentially for those teams to come and volunteer and assist, but they will not be part of your official team roster, which means unless they come and volunteer and we approve that, if you bring them, we're not feeding them lunch. We don't have a credential for them. We don't have any awards for them. You know, only people on your competition roster, especially when it goes to states, are eligible for lunch and awards and being on the field of competition, so on and so forth. That does include your coaches and your paraprofessionals and your team volunteers that are team managers, but they do need to be on your roster when you submit that. Also, make sure you're getting us complete contact info. If you have coaches and you share coaches information with us, make sure, besides for an email, if your coaches are willing to share a cell phone number, that really helps when we run into a pinch, instead of having, if we're missing something at the deadline, you know, for states, let's say, paperwork of some sort, we're missing it on John Smith from, you know, Kent Island, let's say. Instead of us having to call you and find out who the coach is and get the coach's number and then follow up with the coach and get John Smith, you know, if we just have the coach's information, we'll reach straight out to them and talk to them.
Right. And Zach,
yeah.
Hey guys, I was going to jump in on this. This is actually going to be part of my weekly update. So district reps, I am going to be asking you for your coaches' email addresses and cell phone numbers, and I'm going to keep it in a nice, tidy little spreadsheet that we're going to have on our end. We did run into this issue where we had to literally wait almost 24 hours to get a response from a coach, which was a simple yes or no, because we did not have any information other than their work phone, email, and phone number. So that's why I'm going to be reaching out to each of you individually, asking for all that information.
Fantastic. Thank you, Katie. And the last bullet point on this one, substitutes are only applicable for teams with at least 8 players. Again, in your active player roster section where it has the 4 to 8 players, if you don't have that full 8, actually, I need to change the wording. That should say alternates are only applicable for teams with at least 8 players. If you don't have those full 8 roster spots filled, there's no reason to have alternates. Just put them into your active players section. Something that's super helpful for me and Katie. We really appreciate that you guys like to have fun with your team names. We appreciate that you like to rep your school colors, your school mascots, some of the athletes' favorite animals, whatever it may be. Please, 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 when you submit team rosters, please put your school and then a number. So again, Crofton team 1, Crofton team 2, Crofton team 3. We appreciate fun team roster names. Makes it really hard to track down who is who, and we get confused when we have, you know, 40 teams that are submitted for states and 150 teams that are submitted across the state for just general play. Uniforms, nothing has changed with uniforms. Again, all your uniforms need the Special Olympics Unified Sports Pill, like you see on my shirt here. You also see it on the slide. It can be on the chest, it could be on the back, it could be on the sleeve. It needs to have that. Other than that, you can do whatever you want with the shirt. The one thing I will say is you want to make sure you have your team name on there too and easily identifiable. so that we can pick you out of a crowd when we are going to look for, Chapticon High School from St. Mary's at the state tournament. We're not looking for generic, orange shirts with the Unified Sports logo on it. Additionally, I have let people know that if for some reason you have a new school that comes into the fold that already has shirts for X high school, but it doesn't have the Unified Sports pill on it, we have a company that does our clothing and merchandise and uniforms and all that stuff. They have made patches of this in the past, and they are willing to make patches for you to order to iron on patches on the uniforms if it's missing the pill logo. We're not opposed to that. It needs to be on there somewhere. We would like it officially printed on the logo, but if that's not an option to get a team in compliance, reach out to us, let us know. Check in with Katie during the weekly get-togethers and say, Katie, I have a uniform issue. Reach out to me, let us know, and we will help you. If you need uniforms or equipment, step one is always contact your athletics supervisor for the district or a specific school. And step two, if for some reason there's a funding issue or something's going on, reach out to me and we can talk about it. We don't have an unlimited budget, but we want to support you and your student athletes. So if there's something going on in your district or a individual high school that there's a struggle for some reason, let us know. We'll help you guys out for sure. Again, this is just a look ahead. This is more of Katie's stuff. You want to talk about your game plan here, Katie?
Sure. I'm going to be sending out weekly emails. That is just going to be a general check-in, like, hey, how are things going? It could be it'll always include like upcoming dates just to help everyone keep on track of everything. Generally, they'll come out around Monday nights because Zach sends me an email first thing Monday morning. So I generally try to turn that around as fast as I can. So it's not necessarily a call. I know it says 2-minute drill, but if you need to talk to me, my cell phone, I will definitely provide that to everyone. I think everyone has it, but Marianne Schultz, unless you do have it somewhere. No. All right. My first person in years that doesn't have my cell phone number. So I will make sure to provide that to everyone, going forward. So it's nothing going to be crazy. And truthfully, I'm of the opinion no news is good news unless there's an emergency that you're not telling me about. So don't be shy to send me an email. I'm pretty good about checking it on my lunch break, but I'm a middle school teacher, so sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. But yes, and also when you're emailing Zach and myself, please make sure you CC the two of us on every single email, because then this way I'm in the loop on things and he's in the loop on everything. We had some district reps last season who were emailing Zach, and he then turned around to talk to me about something, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So please, when you are emailing both of us, just get in the habit of CCing myself or him. Even if it's not directed to me, at least I know what's going on. And even if it's not directed to him, at least Zach knows what's going on.
Yeah, perfect. I will say if you're reaching out to me for something that is not like bocce, right? If it's a different sport that Katie's not involved in, if it's something in general, if it's like involved with the cool schools or something different like that, you don't have to copy Katie on that kind of stuff. But if it's outdoor bocce, put us both on it and just never look back.
And even, I was gonna say, even with your school emails, like Michelle Hill from Frederick County, she CC'd me on every single email she sent her coaches just to keep me in the loop. That's perfectly fine. I look at it and then I kind of put in an archive folder for each district. So if you want to do that just so that I'm in the know of what's going on, I have no problem with that either.
Yep, for sure. With that said, we are at the end of the line for things that we are looking to present this evening. I am open for questions. If anybody has them on anything outdoor bocce, anything that we didn't cover, you may ask them now. You may put them in chat. You may email them to me tomorrow, whatever works for you. Marianne, question?
So you're going to be sending information to Ryan.
Yes.
And then will I also be then included, or can I be included?
1,000%.
Okay.
For you guys, I pretty much always copy you, whoever your district rep for the sport is, and Brian Lehman on it, just so you all have it. If one of you doesn't need it, sorry, But otherwise you all just typically get it. And we do that with multiple districts that have a few people in the loop.
We also have a Google Drive for all of, do you want to be included on that, or would you prefer
So,
not to have another?
So Marianne,
item
you
to
can
check?
add us. You can add us as collaborators, but I'm going to let you in. When Stedman gave me his stuff for tennis in the fall, I had to download and then upload materials from the folder. So it was helpful, but not helpful because it added a couple extra steps to me. So when you submit paperwork, I'm going to need you to submit it as like the files actually, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
and
I
that,
will
yeah,
say, as a quick follow-up to what Katie's saying and to what Marianne's asking, when you do send your files for team rosters, competition rosters, applications of participation, so on and so forth, if you have them attached to a school Google Drive or whatever it is, if you send us the Google Drive link, there are some that are set up with settings. I don't know if it's set up by you guys or if it's set up by your IT and administration that will let us put in a code. We get a code back. I can technically download it, whatever. It's a few steps. I don't mind. But then there's also some that just say, yeah, we need to request permission. And then I have to email you back, or I have to email a coach back, and then I have to wait 2 or 3 days until you finally see it. And then you finally send it. Quite honestly, if you can do us a solid and take a few extra steps on your end to download them all to a Excel file and a PDF file to a Word file and kick us direct files when you do that, even if you need to zip and compress a file folder together, that's way easier for us than having to play the in and out of the Google Drive game for sure.
and my last question, the paperwork carries over for the students. So if they played unified tennis and they did the CDW and so forth, is there a length of time for the coaches with the Class A and all the paperwork that they have?
They get an even better deal, quite honestly, because they get a 3-year window on their volunteer background check, protective behaviors, and the CDW is a one and done. So they're every 3 years. So something that's really nice, if you have the capability of, or if you would like to work with me to set up the capability of, hey, here's my coaches for this sport. Let's find out where they all stand with stuff. We can pull that information. And if you want to get your coaches on an every 3-year setup of essentially, hey, it's the 3rd year, everybody's got to re-up, get on it. Or you can go year by year, who needs what. And we can, again, if you have questions on who needs what, send me a roster of coaches and we'll pull that for you. And we'll say, hey, here's a spreadsheet back. They need X, Y, or Z. They don't need nothing, whatever. We'll work that out for you.
That's great. Thank you.
Yep. Tanisha.
Good evening. So question, I see the last date for the window for the tournament. What's the absolute last date that we can have our tournament, our district tournament?
So we would really like them done. Sorry, I'm pulling up the calendar on my phone so I don't have to leave our meeting here. We would really like them done by the 5th of May. I know based on windows for stuff, that may not always be perfect. I would say the very, very, very last day, if you need to roll it over into that 2nd week of May, would be the 10th. I do know the way it feels on your guys' end is that, hey, our state tournament's not till the 23rd, but you'll also have to realize we have a 2-day track and field state tournament of a bazillion kids in school. That's an all-comers tournament on the 16th and 17th of May. So we build it a little early so we have buffer time to prep both of them appropriately. So the absolute last day is the 10th. But if you can get it before the 5th, that's the dream.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
I know Baltimore City, our spring break is April 3rd and we don't return until the 11th.
Gotcha. Okay.
So there is just no way humanly possible for us to try to even get like 4 in a tournament.
Yeah.
And then we have observance days, which knock out the 19th, 20th, and 21st. We're trying to get those amended. We met with our chief of schools today.
Okay.
to see if like, if there's a student or something, if we can move those matches, but if not, if
Okay.
we can hold contest on that, but that might knock out that week for city schools. Like, so none of our sport, as of right now,
Yeah.
none of our sports are taking places in the evening for the 19th, 20th, and 21st for those observance days.
Gotcha.
So
So
If-
Tanisha, take a look at that first half, the first week and the first half of the second week of May, and see if anything does work there. And then let's communicate, me, you, and Katie, as we start to roll into the spring here, on what's going to work for you. Again, we realize that there's different needs for different districts and stuff. We do want to get them in as early as we can, but let's keep communicating on that. And take a look and send us a day or two if there's dates that are potentially better for you, so we can take a look at them.
yeah, I'm gonna work. I know that I also try to leave a buffer
Yeah.
in case of weather, because
Yep.
as we know how unpredictable that is.
1000%.
But if we can get those the 19th, 20th, and 21st back, that helps some.
Yeah.
But if not, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm
Again,
gonna work on that.
yeah, let us know, communicate with us, and we'll just keep an open line of communication. Again, we gotta put a stop point at some point, just so we can get all the paperwork and things lined up.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
just keep working with us.
Absolutely. Okay. I just wanted to make you kind of aware, and I'm not sure, if other people may have just things to consider with spring break and stuff like that.
Oh, for sure, for sure. So, good question though. Thank you, Tanisha.
Mhm.
Other questions?
I have one maybe question or comment that might actually help you out in Baltimore. I can't remember which year it was. We had a lot of weather issues one year, and we ended up having to have one of our matches. And since we have such a small area, we kind of do a lot of little district tournaments. We ended up having one of them after our district tournament, just to check off that we still had the competition. Even though it was technically after the district tournament. Sometimes the tournaments are so early and it's like there's all that time in between. So it was like, well, why not just still get together, and you're still practicing against somebody else. So, even if you are able to get a district tournament in that first week of May, you could still use the next 2 weeks to have, even if they aren't official matches, they could just be like scrimmages sort of.
Yeah, that's an absolutely great point, Katie. Again, to get your competition number that you need of practices and competitive opportunities, you can swing them over. We recognize there's a 2-week gap between when we want you to have districts done and your state tournament. I mean, there's a week and a half even before track technically. So I think that's a really great point. And districts, feel free to do that for sure. Other questions, comments, concerns?
Well, I have a question for Miss Katie. Are you going to come help me at States again this year?
Who, me?
Yes, you.
At States? Yeah, I'll be there.
Okay.
Yeah, they always give me the day off for athletics. So as long as I'm able to do that with school, if they keep letting me, I'll keep doing it.
I'll call Mr. Dan Harding if they don't. I'll have a word with him. So, all right, well, if that's it, it looks like Katie's cat is ready for dinner. I know I'm ready for dinner after a long weekend of winter games. That was really good. With that, I'll make a plug to remind you, if you have students that are graduating at the end of the spring, we have Special Olympics programs in every county in the state. We have unified programs. We have non-unified programs where it's just athlete competition. We just did snowshoeing and alpine skiing in the winter. We do bowling in the late winter. We have summer games, which is swimming and bocce and track and field and cheerleading and softball. We offer flag football as a community program. We offer tennis. We offer everything under the sun. We have a really good kayaking program in the summer. We have a really strong golf program in the summer. Again, if you have questions about getting your student athletes, that's athletes with intellectual disabilities or your unified partners, into Special Olympics community program after they graduate, please let me know. I will 100% honestly tell you, We are in dire need 24/7 for new young coaches, new young volunteers, new young unified partners to get involved. So again, if you have kids that graduate that don't go off to a 4-year school somewhere else, that go to a 4-year school in Maryland, that go to a 2-year school, whatever they want to do, we have programs that we would love to get them involved with. So please do reach out to me, and I'd love to connect you with our community leadership as well. With that said, thank you guys for everything that you've done already for this season. Wait, Marianne, do you have a question before I thank everyone? Okay, you unmuted. I was like, hold on, we ain't stopping this train yet. Anyway, thank you for everything you've done this season. Thank you for everything you've done for past multiple seasons for other sports that we've done. Spring tends to be a little bit easier of a startup thanks to all the hard work you do in fall and winter. But I'm really excited for spring sports. I really enjoy getting out there in May in the nice weather to see your student athletes compete. And I'm sure they're excited for one last round of unified sports before we end up the school year. So again, if there's anything you need, reach out to Katie, reach out to myself. We want to support you. We want to get you the resources and the best experience for your student athletes that we can. And whatever you need, we will work and do our best to make that happen. So thank you again. And if you have anything else, we're going to stop the recording, but you may enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.